Guru Nation, welcome to episode 239 of Random Musings from the Clinical Trials Guru. My name is Dan Sfera. I've been sick for a while. Haven't been doing too many podcasts, although yesterday I got another one with Chris. We got that one done. So it's been a busy, my gosh, it's been a busy 2019. Strike while the iron's hot, all the stuff, make hay while the sun shines, all that is applicable this year for sure. It's even busier than 2018. And we're only in February, which is crazy. So a lot of opportunities. A lot of people naturally are thinking of doing something different in research this year or expanding their capabilities. This is a good year to do it, whether it's opening a site or trying to get your first start in research as an employee somewhere. This is a good year to do it. So I got asked the question that I've been meaning to make a podcast on because I wanted to go in depth on it. And I'm actually looking to see if I've done this before. I'm on my YouTube channel right now. Go to Dan Sfera on YouTube if you're not. If you're listening on the podcast, I would appreciate it. They wanted me to discuss how I got involved in research and what I would do if I were starting over. So I think I did the what I would do if I were starting over. I'm looking through my channels right now to see if I actually have that or not. How to track. Maybe I didn't actually do that one. Let's see. Nope. Doesn't look like I did anything. Okay, so let's do it on this one. Okay, so how I got started. Let's get into my story first. If you don't know, I got started in research on accident, like most people. And actually, I should take it back one step further. I actually got started in research because my dad, who was a principal investigator, he still is a psychiatrist, but he works for the state of California right now. So he's doing nothing. He's doing academic research, and recently we started talking about doing some hard science type of stuff on the sponsor side of things, which is very exciting for me. Although it's been moving slowly, it's been pretty exciting. So he got started when he was still in private practice in 1999, maybe 2000. He got started because he was at University of Southern California, and one of their main researchers there, Dr. Simpson, I met him a few times. He actually created the Simpson-Angus scale for anyone who's familiar with psychiatric rating scales. So he's a pretty famous dude. He was tired of doing research at USC because they were restricted by their local IRB. So he kind of convinced my dad and maybe, I want to say like 6 or 7 other doctors to start their own private site. And so all these doctors did. It was like, I think it ended up being a group of 4 or 5 doctors that ended up opening South Coast Clinical Trials, which was a private research site where they can do all the studies and not be restricted by the local IRBs that USC had. So it sounds really good on paper, but in actuality, and we're going to get to that part, it was not managed properly, and that ended up creating opportunity for me. But we're getting too far ahead of ourselves. So take a step back. They opened this site. I still knew nothing about research. At this time, I was just starting college, so I wasn't even living with my dad. So, we only talked a few times a month, maybe by phone, and research rarely came up. So, but I would come home from school in the summer because I went to Arizona, despite the Cal sweater I'm wearing. I went to Arizona, University of Arizona, for my undergrad, and over there, you come home for summer, and then my major was pre-pharmacy, and then it was pre-medicine, pre-med. So I'd come home in the summers, and you know how it is in college, you're kind of bored. Summers, long when you're not going to school, and if I wasn't doing summer school, there's a few classes I took at community colleges with summer school, but I would occasionally go with my dad to the office. And the site, South Coast Clinical Trials, was built in his private practice with a bunch of other doctors there as well, but he was the owner of the private practice. And the other doctors, some of them I think had their own private practice in there, but really they were all there for research. But my dad was not there for research. He was there just running his private practice. So I would go there, and then he'd be busy with his patients. And so he would have me help out, just like I have my interns help us out now. We've come full circle. In the CRA Academy, I have our interns help out with the same things that I was doing with him, like enter this data in the EDC, file these papers in the reg binder. What's a reg binder? Well, figure it out. So, like, I learned hands-on. He didn't know what these things were either. PIs really don't know what these things are. If you ask a PI what is what are some regulatory documents, unless they're really doing a lot of research or they're very hands-on at the clinic, they delegate all that to the coordinators or to other staff. So they really don't know where things are filed in the reg binder and those kind of stuff, even if they're the owner. So I had to learn all these things on my own, and that was summer. So I thought it was a good idea to go to volunteer at the clinic. Number one, I was bored. Number two, I knew that my grades were not good enough to get me to med school on their own. So I needed some extracurriculars, and research I thought was really good. It was a good differentiator. And then I started learning about what clinical research was around 2000, 2001. I was a freshman, sophomore, junior in college. But then I would go back to school when the semester started again, and I would kind of forget about research, right? Like I didn't really know what I was actually doing at the site. There was some phase 4 studies, which are really simple observational studies. So I wasn't really doing much. I was just more doing the paperwork. Interning there was actually staff there that were working on these studies full time. Not only for my dad's studies, but a bunch of other PIs that were there in that group. So I finally graduated college, and then every summer I would just do this. So I would intern a few times a week every summer for 3 months every year for 4 years. Then I graduated college. I actually moved back to California because I did not want to stay in Arizona. Although I love Arizona, I have property in Arizona now, but at the time I was like, get me back to California. Like, I miss the ocean. I'm tired of the heat. So I moved back, and during this time I was still trying to apply to med school, and my grades were not good. I graduated with a bachelor's of science in molecular and cellular biology. So it was like the toughest major, the toughest undergrad major at this university. But I mean, I was like at a 2.4, I think, when I graduated college. So there was no way I was making it to med school because I chose one of the hardest majors, because most pre-med students choose molecular cellular biology. But you don't have to. You just need to take certain prerequisites. But I chose the toughest major. Bad idea. No chance of getting into med school. No chance of even getting into pharmacy school. So I started thinking, what are my options now? Like, I learned what a monitor was. My dad and the other people at the clinic would frequently run into monitors, just like we do every day here now. And the monitors, they would tell them what they do for their jobs, how much they get paid. Even back then, there was a shortage of CRAs, probably even more so than there is now. So they were always asking the doctors, hey, if you know anyone that wants to be a CRA, we're hiring, but they have to have a little bit of experience. It was the same thing back then as it is now. They prefer you have a little bit of experience at the site level. So my dad told me, why not apply to be a monitor? And with the little bit of experience I had on my CV, I did. I think I applied to maybe 15 CROs. Not one email or phone call back, not one interview. I don't blame them. I had very little experience on my CV, and it was just sporadic. So I had no choice but to go back to the site, and I didn't work for my dad. I refused to actually have my dad be my boss. So I just volunteered there, and I said, Dad, I'm going to just be here 3 more months. I think I just need to get more of these studies on my CV. You don't need to pay me. I'm just going to add this experience, and then I'm going to apply to be a CRA. So to me, the whole time I was interning at South Coast Clinical Trials, it was just meant to be a temporary thing. Like, you're just here to gain some experience so you can get hired and actually get a CRA job. Well, it didn't work out that way, all right? What ended up happening was during this time, right when I graduated college, right when I knew med school was not going to work out, right when I literally started interning um, at the site, there was a director there and a bunch of PIs, and basically no one was running the site. No one, the director had no experience with research. They were creating a competitor company across the street without any of the PIs knowing. So it was a mess. People found out overnight. People just left. Like, they took the staff with them. It was a mess. So it ended up being me, my dad, and another PI. That's it. That's all who was left. And my dad said, you know what, Dan, we're going to close this clinic down. The research side, I'm still going to do my private practice. This private practice was doing really good. I'm going to close the research down unless you think you can do it. But you're going to have to do everything and kind of learn everything on the fly because I'm not going to train you. We don't have time to do that here. So I did. I said, yes, I'll do it. So I got the ownership, 100% owner, right then and there. There was no revenue. There was actually, we had a bunch of debt, I learned later on, but no revenue, but there was money. There was patient activity. So there was already accounts receivables. It's just no one really knew how much or from whom because the site director left. So it was literally like just learning as I would get a check in the mail and say, oh, okay, so they've paid us for these visits now. I mean, it was a complete mess. But to me, because I was in my early 20s, I really had no other options other than monitoring. I was still going to try med school and all that. Like, I was going to start trying, some of the doctor of osteopathy schools, which are a little easier to get into. So I was going to do all that. But then this opportunity came, and I always knew I was, an entrepreneur because, I had entrepreneurial tendencies even at the age of 4, 5, selling bugs to my neighbors and selling bugs. Like, literally, I would dig up roly-polies from the front yard and go out on the street. It was in Santa Monica. It was a busy street, and have a sign that says pet sale. People would walk by, jog by, say, where's the pets? Give them a jar of dirt, say, hey, this is the pets. They would love that. So I always had that in me. Then I started dog walking businesses. So I knew I had that. It's just you go to school and then you go to college, and unless you're in a business program, like a business degree, which we can talk about that later because I have an MBA and I don't think it's worth anything. I don't think it's worth the paper it's printed on. That's another podcast entirely. But when you're doing pre-med stuff, you forget that you are an entrepreneur because those skills don't really match up to what you need to do to be successful as a pre-med student. So I just, I had those tendencies in me, but I had the hustle. I always had the hustle. But I just kind of forgot about it. I was like, doctor or then a CRA. I just kept lowering my expectations. And then this opportunity came, and I didn't even really think twice. Just I took it. I didn't know there was money coming in, but it turns out there was a good amount of money that started coming in quickly. So I started on I started with a running start. I got really lucky. But I also had to learn everything on my own. Nobody taught me anything. We didn't even know which patients were supposed to come in for what studies. literally, I would be at my office every day at the site when I took over, when I was by myself. A patient who I've never seen before would walk in. They wouldn't know me either. And they'd say, "Hey, I'm here for the study." And I had 4 studies, so I was like, "Which study? And who are you?" And then I would literally look at all the source documents, which study they're in and who this person was. And so that's how I had my retention. My retention was relying on the patients to come in because everything was gone. There was nothing. There was no way for me to find out. We didn't have contact sheets for these patients. I was lucky to have the source documents there on site, honestly, and the regulatory. It's a miracle we had those things there. So learned everything from a monitor on one of my busy trials. We had a study before I started interning there, or before I took over. There were actually 3 or 4 experienced coordinators that were enrolling like crazy. I think the site director was having them enroll like crazy. And then, of course, when shit hit the fan, they all left. But now I had a study with all these patients. I don't know what I'm doing, let alone know the protocol, let alone know who the patients are. And so, like, I had to learn from almost nothing, like zero. I had to learn everything that was involved with running a research study. All right, so that was just one study. Then I had 3 other studies which were slightly less enrolling, but there were still patients there. There were still monitors coming in, and the monitors, when they came in, they're caught off guard too. They're like, "Who are you?" I said, "I'm the new coordinator." Everybody took off except the PI and the sub-I. So I'm here. I'm learning as I go, and I had one monitor from the higher enrolling study that really took me under her wing. I mean, she was tough. Like, I was actually scared of her at one point. She would come in my office and rip things off the wall, tell me they don't belong there, but it was like tough love, because she really taught me everything, and I think I needed that because I got like a crash course in clinical research from her. Of course, there were still things I had to learn, and she was not teaching me anything. Of course, monitors don't know anything about the business aspects of running a study, but at least the operations were there. Okay, and then, so I got good at that. It took me another 3 months to really, like, be a decent coordinator, and then I hired my friend from college. I said, "Hey, man, you want a job? Come out here, move to California. You're going to be a study coordinator." He came, and then I started bringing on more people. At that point, my dad retired, and I had the sub-I that now became the PI. And then we found through networking, through referrals, actually one PI was referred to me by one of my monitors. And so I opened more sites. I opened 2 more sites, one at a time, of course. And I think I expanded too quickly. What I should have done was really built that one site into more of a stable company. I mean, we were doing really, at one point, like a couple years after I'm telling you the story, we were doing really good at that site. I had about 5 employees full-time at that site, myself, some raiders, some sub-Is. So it was a good amount of people, like a dozen people that I was managing, and we were making really good revenue. This was all before the Great Recession of '08, and it really fell apart in '09. So from '05, when I graduated college, until '09, this is where, like, '05 was really my crash course. Then '06, I hired my friend. '06, I started hiring some more people. My dad retired. I brought in other PIs, expanded. All right. I expanded into a recession without really knowing what that was. So '08, I opened a new clinic in San Bernardino. And I think in 2010, I opened a new one in Norwalk, California, which is a Los Angeles suburb. So all in Southern California, but far enough apart to where we're not competing. And sponsors were not concerned about patients being duplicate patients. So I think I expanded too quickly at that point. And obviously, I mean, hindsight's 2020. Nobody would have predicted that the Great Recession was going to be as bad as it was, but it was. we started seeing studies getting shut down. We started seeing just no more studies, right? And now I had all the staff, not that many studies, had to let a lot of people go. Really tough. I got creative with one of the sites, and what I did with that site was took two of the coordinators who I really liked, and I said, hey, let's become partners here. Now, what that means is you're not going to get paid until the company starts making money, but you're going to be equal partner. One of those guys is Chris Sauber, who you may know. So he started out as one of my employees at my San Bernardino clinic. Now he's a business partner with that same clinic, which is still there. The South Coast Clinical Trials, I sold the rest of my shares for the Anaheim site and the Norwalk site to two other groups. So I'm no longer affiliated with that Anaheim site and the Norwalk site, but I am with the San Bernardino site, and now we opened a brand new one, 2014, here in Costa Mesa. And in 2010, that's when I started YouTube channel and all that. So that started bringing in a lot of opportunities too, and I started networking with a lot of people who wanted to be CRAs, a lot of people that wanted to open sites, and then that evolved into a consulting service. And as the podcast and the YouTube kept growing, it really started growing. I started this in 2010, the podcast, or not the podcast, the YouTube channel. And 2014, 2015, it really started gaining traction. And now with the podcast, I mean, we're growing like crazy as far as the audience and as far as clients that we're adding. So I've come a long way, and there's good and bad with how my career kind of evolved. The bad is I still don't even have like one mega site that is like the foundation to everything else. Or maybe I wouldn't even need everything else if I had that one mega site, although something tells me I would, because I'm always looking for new challenges, new opportunities, and I think I get bored. When a business that I run gets stable, I start getting bored. So the cure for that is to either keep opening up new businesses, which is kind of what I did with the sites. And now we have a site in Atlanta that we're partnered on, Baltimore that we're partnered on, Chicago that we're partnered on. We're about to do Phoenix. So I don't get bored that way because they're all startups. But once, like South Coast Clinical Trials, I was starting to get bored once it started getting stable. And I think that's the bad. Like, you got to take the good with the bad. What's really good about me is I'm creative. I'm able to expand. I'm able to think outside the box. So what's bad about me is the management and the stability. Like, I really need to bring people in, which is why Chris is a perfect business partner for me, because he's the complete opposite. He's all about stability. And so it works really well. So I think, like, if I had to do it all over again, I mean, I probably wouldn't do very much different. I'm pretty happy with what I've done. The one thing I would have done differently was, there's a couple things with that first site, South Coast Clinical Trials. I probably would not have expanded into a recession, right? But again, it's in my DNA to want to expand. So it's like, those things like clash, and I know what would win. My entrepreneurial spirit would win. So I don't know if I said to myself I wouldn't have done that, I probably still would have. And it probably would have been a similar outcome. I would have brought in someone like Chris much sooner. Somebody that complements my weaknesses, right? Someone whose strengths complement my weaknesses. My weaknesses is management. I love people. I love people too much to where I have a hard time, even to this day, I have a hard time telling them, like, hey, you're not really doing a good job. I've gotten a lot better lately, but like when I first started out, it was really tough. So I needed to bring in that manager to kind of get that site stable. And then because I expanded into a downturn, I was forced to bring on investors, people that I would rather have not done business with these people. Let's just put it that way. I had two investors. One was I liked. I'm still in relationships with both. One was cool. The other ones were someone that I'd rather, like, in a perfect world, not have to be in business with them. But because I chose to expand and then the market slapped me in the face, I had to bring on investors. And once you do that, you no longer call all the shots. And I learned that the hard way. So I probably would have done that differently. If I knew everything I know now, I would not have brought on investors. I would have just slowed down on the expansion. Even if I had to just temporarily lay people off, just have that tough conversation with them, um, help them find a job somewhere, and then hopefully have them come back. Do anything you can to not bring in investors and to limit your partners to just people that you don't mind doing business with, like someone you get along with, because the cliche is true. Being in business is like being married to someone, and it's tough to get out of. Just like a marriage, it's tough. Like, I had to sell my shares for far less than what I thought they were worth. Whatever, it's behind us. But you got to take the good with the bad, right? That was the bad. The good was I was able to create this YouTube channel. I was able to have all these mini sites all over the place. Like, instead of having one mega clinic with 100 studies going on every year, I would have, we don't have 100 sites, but I have, like, with clients and sites I own, 100 sites now. And we have all, like, 2 or 3 or 4 or maybe 9 studies at this clinic I'm sitting in now. We have 9 studies going on. So we have a bunch of small sites, and I think it helps. That helps scratch my expansion itch and my not wanting to get bored itch. And now we have the CRO, and we have the exosome stuff we're doing. We're trying to do some stuff with CBD. So there's a lot I'm doing now, and I think that I like the situation I'm in now. And I don't think I could have had this if I would have just had one big site. I don't even think the YouTube channel would have been able to be pulled off if I had one big site, because I would have been too dependent. All my eggs would have been in one basket. And now I have a bunch of baskets and just like a few eggs in each one. So I think I was willing to take the risk of creating a YouTube channel and talking like transparently about the industry, which still almost nobody's doing to this day. I don't think I would have been willing to risk that had I just had a one mega site, right? But now that I have like a bunch of small, tiny sites all over the place, plus a bunch of other different businesses, small CRO, consulting, CRA Academy, I don't feel like all my eggs are in one basket. So I feel like I can be more transparent on YouTube and on these podcasts. And that actually creates more interest, creates new interest in me, right? And so it like feeds itself. So that's my story. That's how I got started. Hopefully I'm not boring you. I'm nowhere near being done. I don't know if I'll ever have like a mega clinic. I'm not against it, but I wouldn't be the one running it. So if I'm ever involved in a mega clinic, I would not be the only owner. I would just be a partner, and all I would do is advisory stuff. I wouldn't be managing it, because to me that would be hell. What I like doing is what I'm currently doing, which is growing the businesses, expanding, biz deving, networking with people, and doing a little bit of the operational stuff. Just you have to, no matter what you like or what you don't like. If you're running a clinic, you have to have the operations tight, even if you have a manager that you put in place. Like, you still need to know, okay, what's the SOPs? What's the regulatory environment now? What is eSource? Like, I'm doing a training on eSource. We're switching to eSource because I think it's going to make the sites more efficient. So you still have to get down and dirty, but you have to complement your strengths with somebody else whose strengths match your weaknesses. And I don't think I'll ever have like a mega site, but I'm not against it. It's just, even if I did, it wouldn't feel like I did. Like, I feel at home at these smaller sites, and it also gives me the freedom to do all this other stuff that I want to do, which actually makes me happy because I'm genuinely excited about this CRO and about the sponsor stuff. Like, I'm actually starting to do sponsor related work, which is, I think, the next decade of my career is going to be around that, with the sites as the foundation. And then, not even to mention all the vendors in this industry. There's companies that I've seen start out from nothing, get a bunch of venture capital money, and just blow up, right? Get acquired. So I've seen them come and go, and there's still something there with the vendor space that I haven't even tapped. I've just been busy with the sites, with the consulting, with the CRA Academy, with the CRO, and now with the sponsor stuff. So I'm like really into all this stuff, and I feel like I couldn't do all this if I had a big site. So that's how I got started. I don't have too many regrets other than maybe expanding too quickly in a down market. And then another big regret I have is bringing on investors when I should have just tightened up the belt a lot. Right. So it's easier said than done now, but it worked out well. The best thing I think I did was say yes to the opportunity my dad gave me. I could have said no, but I didn't, and I didn't even have to think about it. So that would have, my career would have, who knows what I would have been. I mean, maybe I would have went to School of Osteopathy. I don't know if I would have gotten into research. And then the second best thing I did in my career was start the YouTube channel. And yeah, I mean, I'm glad things worked out the way it did. That's how I got started. Again, most people get started on accident. I got super lucky. I had a running start, but there's also a lot of cons associated with that. And it's that first year there, I was just learning everything on my own. I was a 24-year-old kid with hypertension, right? Like, I was stressed. Like, that's something that people don't talk about enough. When you have a startup, it is stressful. Like, 24 years old. Now my blood pressure is normal. I don't take any meds. I'm 37. When I was 24, and I had monitors yelling at me, and like patients that I didn't even know just showing up and worrying about the FDA and all this stuff, and sponsor audits, and my blood pressure was really bad. So I had to, it's stressful, and that's something people don't really know. They just want to focus on the good stuff. And yeah, things worked out well, but that first year, I cannot state it enough. And then we didn't even get into the debt that company had that I was responsible for that I didn't even know. We were talking about $100,000 in debt that I found out later about, and I, as the sole owner now, was completely responsible for it. So maybe that's another episode for the podcast, but don't take on debt. Don't take on investors. Keep it small, or don't keep it small, but expand slowly. No matter if you're doing one site of any size or multiple sites of any size, do it slowly. Be careful about taking other people's money. Very careful about that. And yeah, that's it. But then take the risks when necessary. All right. Hopefully this helps somebody out. I'm glad somebody was actually interested in hearing my story. And for all the videos I've done, I've not really talked about it much. So maybe this was much needed. All right. Thank you guys. Thank you, Guru Nation. I appreciate it. Catch you all later. Bye-bye.